Sonic! Sonic the Hedgehog 3. Team Sonic, Knuckles, and Tails must reunite against a powerful new adversary named Shadow, who has powers unlike anything they have been up against before. Team Sonic must seek out an unlikely alliance in the form of Dr. Robotnik in hopes of stopping Shadow and saving the planet.
Any last words?
Nice magic marble, real scary. That actually is real scary.
When I was a kid, I grew up playing the Sonic games on Sega Genesis and GameCube, but would I consider myself like a super fan of Sonic? No, like I enjoy Sonic a lot. So what did I think of Sonic 3? It was really good. I had a great time with this flick. It is a lot of fun. This movie has probably the best action out of all three of the Sonic films so far in the trilogy. Like, this definitely had the most Dragon Ball Z-ish action. And over-the-top action. Yeah, I loved it the most. I thought it was like the most interesting, the most compelling. And just in general, this movie did a lot of fan service. Probably even more so than the other two films. This movie had a lot of like Easter eggs and fan service. And if you just love the Sonic world and the games and the character, I feel like this movie is going to be right up your alley. Ultimately, the movie looked really good, really colorful, really fun. There's a particularly amazing fight scene and even like a motorcycle chase scene in the first like 25 minutes of the movie. I absolutely loved it. Of course, Ben Schwartz as Sonic is amazing. Idris Elba as Knuckles is awesome. And then of course we have Jim Carrey as not just as Dr. Robotnik, but his grandpapa, Gerald Robotnik. You get sort of like two Jim Carreys for the price of one in this movie. And for me, that's all it took for me to go see this movie, was that fact that Jim Carrey was back.
Did you miss me?
He is one of my favorite comedic actors of all time. He always choreographs his characters so well physically, and just his vocal work. I just think he's such a funny actor. This might be the best Dr. Robotnik out of all three films. And then we come to the new character of Shadow. And the fact that it's voiced by Keanu Reeves, John Wick himself, it felt like it was like John Wick as this animated character. And whatever, I loved it. It was great. To have both Keanu Reeves and Jim Carrey in a movie together, like two Canadian staple actors, oh, I loved it. I love it! And I thought the Shadow character was written really well and had a really good backstory and actually is quite dark. And this is the other thing about this movie that I did actually like, was that this movie is a fair amount darker than the other two films. It's still got the same sort of tone and feel and, you know, experience as the other two films, but this one has definitely a darker story, a darker villain in that way. Like Robotnik, you don't really have to take too seriously, or at least I don't. But Shadow is a little bit of a different adversary. And that story around that character and how he gets free and all that stuff, I'm not going to spoil anything, but I thought was really good and I really appreciated it. The soundtrack in this movie is great. There's lots of little like Easter eggs to the video games and like the music from those games and stuff like that. And they sprinkle it and play it throughout this entirety of this film. This movie's like only like an hour and 49 minutes long. So it's like under 2 hours. So it didn't feel too long. It was kind of the right amount of time spent on screen with these characters. Jeff Fowler, who directed the other two films, does a great job with this movie as well. And honestly, if him and his team keep coming back to the Sonic world and make more Sonic movies, I will show up at the theaters. I will be there and check it out because I think they do a really good job with this franchise and with these characters. There is a joke in this movie that's very meta humor, and they break the fourth wall with the camera. And I don't know if they did any of that in the first two films, but I really didn't like it in this movie. It's a reference basically to Jim Carrey playing two roles in this movie by the same actor. And I think a lot of movies, what they're doing is they're seeing the success of like Deadpool and Wolverine and stuff like that, or over the last, 6-7 years, and having this very open fourth wall meta humor, and they're kind of trying to duplicate that in their movie because it works so well with Deadpool. But the Deadpool character works well with breaking the fourth wall. That's his whole shtick.
I can gently tap the fourth wall too. The proposal.
When we start just trying to shove those breaking the fourth walls into just other movies for the sake of a joke, it doesn't work. Moana 2 did it recently and I hated it.
Hey, yeah!
The expositional dialogue in this movie is just horrific. Like, it is cringy. It's almost like nails on a chalkboard at certain aspects. And I get it, it's a kid's film, and you got to keep that in mind, and I understand that. But it is definitely like, oh my gosh, Sonic, we got to lower the energy levels or things are going to blow.
Well, how would you read it?
Oh, I don't know. I was thinking of doing it, good, like an actor. But, your way's good, too.
And this movie being a few years removed from the first Sonic and the Hedgehog movie, this audience has grown up and, it's a little bit older. I think we could have had some more complicated and intricate dialogue in this film than just being, like, straight down the barrel, like, just saying how it is. Anytime they go and they, do things in the human world and the human characters are talking, it feels like a different movie, and it doesn't really work. I felt the human characters in the first Sonic the Hedgehog movie were important. Then in the second Sonic movie, we have the whole wedding scene with the sister and the husband who's actually a part of Gun, and thank God Sonic 3 took notes from Sonic 2, and they really got rid of a lot of the human stuff and were really much more focused on, like, Team Sonic and Knuckles and Shadow and Tails and stuff like that. And they tell this story about Shadow and they have all these flashbacks to, like, what happened to him in the past, and great character development, don't get me wrong, but it just, like, just puts the brakes on the movies every time we go to a flashback. And then there's a little bit of uneven pacing with the movie. Like, the first act of this film is phenomenal. The first, like, 25-30 minutes is just, like, a banger about how to make a Sonic film. It is probably the best part of a Sonic movie out of all three Sonic films. Then in the second act, it kind of drags a bit, and we get into this backstory with, like, Dr. Robotnik and his grandpapa, his grandpappy, his grandpa, his pawpaw, and all the other grandpa words that he calls them. And then there's also this whole thing with, like, Shadow and that backstory, and then we have some scenes with the humans, and so the second act is a kind of a jumbled mess, and then as soon as we get into the third act, the film kicks right back up and picks up basically from where the first act left off, and it's just this great, awesome action-adventure Sonic film, and kind of in space. This is a kid's movie, and as long as you have that mindset going into this film, I really do think that children and adults can really enjoy this movie and have a fun time with it. Even if you're not a Sonic fan, you can still consider this like a fun kids movie. I think you'll enjoy this movie a lot more if you're a Sonic fan. I think a lot of people who are big Sonic fans are really excited about what's to come. And I know that my theater was, because so many children and kids and people were screaming and cheering for certain people who showed up. And I was like, great, that's awesome. Good for you guys. Who is this?
Who that? Who in my house?
Maybe this is the best Sonic film out of the three. Go check it out in the theaters, especially if you have kids. You'll have a great time. Before I get my final thoughts and grade on this film, if you like this video, click that like button and subscribe to my channel for more content. While you're down there, comment down below, what did you think of Sonic the Hedgehog 3? Is this your favorite of the Sonic films? Are you a big Sonic fan from the games? Let me know with your thoughts and comments about this movie down below. So I'm going to go ahead and give Sonic the Hedgehog 3 a B+. Come back and check out some other movie reviews such as Moana 2, Gladiator 2, and Wicked. Thanks for stopping by, everyone. Have a great day, and we'll see you on the next film.